If you hike deep into the Garnet Mountains of Montana, past the shadows of Douglas firs and the whispering needles of ponderosa pines, you might stumble upon a place where time didn't just stop, it vanished. There are no gift shops here, no neon signs, and no paved roads. Instead, there is a silence so heavy it feels like a physical weight. In the late 1890s, this was the heart of the richest ghost town in Montana. Today, Garnet is a skeletal remains of a dream, a village of 30 buildings standing in a state of arrested decay. It is a place where you can still see the indentations of boots on wooden floorboards and smell the faint, ghostly scent of wood smoke and old leather. But be careful what you listen for. The locals say that when the wind dies down and the moon hits the frost-covered roofs, you can still hear the clink of glass from a saloon that hasn't served a drink in 100 years. This is the true, remarkable story of Garnet, Montana, a town built on gold, destroyed by fire, and preserved by the very mountains that tried to swallow it whole. The birth of a mountain citadel. The story of Garnet doesn't begin with a town, but with a sound, the rhythmic clink, clink, clink of a miner's pickaxe hitting quartz. In the late 1860s, Montana was the frontier of frontiers. While the Civil War raged in the east, prospectors were heading west, fueled by rumors of color in the creeks. In 1865, a group of miners discovered placer gold in what would become known as First Chance Gulch. For a few years, it was a typical boom and bust cycle. Men lived in tents, washed dirt in pans, and moved on when the easy gold ran out. But Garnet was different. Beneath the topsoil lay a treasure far more permanent than loose dust, deep veins of gold-bearing quartz. By 1895, a man named Samuel Ritchie began platting a town site. He didn't call it Ritchieville, he named it Garnet, after the semi-precious red stones found in the local ore. It was a sophisticated name for a rugged place. Unlike the lawless, violent camps of the early gold rush, Garnet was designed to be a community. The Golden Zenith, 1898. By 1898, Garnet was a buzzing hive of ambition. Nearly 1,000 people called this high-altitude fortress home. Imagine the logistics. Every piece of glass, every piano, every iron stove, and every keg of whiskey had to be hauled up a steep, treacherous stagecoach road that rose 2,500 feet in just a few miles. The town was a study in contradictions. On one hand, it had 13 saloons, places like the Kelly Saloon, where miners spent their hard-earned dust on rut-gut whiskey and poker. On the other hand, it was a town of families. There was a schoolhouse where children learned Latin and algebra, a butcher shop, a candy store, and a doctor's office. The centerpiece of social life was the Wells Hotel. Built by Jane and Frank Wells, it was a marvel of frontier luxury. It boasted hand-carved woodwork, fine china, and guest rooms that offered a rare commodity in a mining camp: privacy. For a miner living in a cramped, soot-stained cabin, the Wells Hotel represented the life they were all striving for. But life in Garnet was a gamble against nature. The winters were brutal. Snow would pile up to the eaves of the houses, and the only way to get around was on snowshoes or skis. The honey dippers, the men tasked with emptying the outhouses, had the hardest job in town, navigating sub-zero temperatures to keep the village sanitary. The wealth beneath the floorboards. What made Garnet truly unique was the richness of its mines. The Nancy Hanks, the Shamrock, and the Magone mines were legendary. The Nancy Hanks alone produced over $300,000 in gold in just a few short years, an astronomical sum at the time. The miners worked in shifts, descending hundreds of feet into the dark, cold earth. They used single jacking, holding a steel drill in one hand and hitting it with a hammer in the other to blast through the rock. It was dangerous, lung-destroying work, but the lure of the big strike kept them going. The gold from Garnet was so pure that it was often used directly as currency in the local stores. A man could walk into the mercantile, pour a bit of yellow dust onto a scale, and walk out with a sack of flour and a new pair of Levi's. The Great Fire and the slow fade. Every boomtown has a shadow, and for Garnet, that shadow was cast by fire. In 1912, a massive blaze broke out in the town's business district. In the high, dry air of the Montana mountains, wood becomes like tinder. Without a modern fire department, the residents could only watch as half of their town, including many of the grandest buildings, turned to ash. The fire was a turning point. At the same time, the easy-to-reach gold was disappearing. The onset of World War I took the young men away to the trenches of Europe. By 1920, the population had dwindled to nearly nothing. Garnet became a ghost long before it was officially abandoned. However, the town had one last gasp of life. During the Great Depression in the 1930s, President Roosevelt raised the price of gold from $20 to $35 an ounce. Suddenly, the old tailings of Garnet were worth money again. A small group of hardy souls moved back into the dilapidated cabins, reopening the mines and the post office. But it was a stay of execution, not a pardon. When the United States entered World War II, the government declared gold mining non-essential to the war effort. The dynamite and machinery were needed for copper and steel. The last residents of Garnet packed their trunks, boarded up their windows, and walked away. The village that refused to rot. Usually, when a town is abandoned in the wilderness, the elements claim it. Roofs collapse under snow, vandals strip the wood, and the forest moves in. But Garnet was lucky. Because of its extreme isolation and the dry mountain air, the buildings didn't rot, they mummified. In the 1970s, the Bureau of Land Management, BLM, and the Garnet Preservation Association stepped in. They decided not to restore the town to look like a movie set, but to preserve it in its state of arrested decay. This means that when you walk into the Kelly Hotel today, you aren't seeing a replica. You are seeing the original floorboards, the original wallpaper peeling from the walls, and the original bar where miners once leaned. In the schoolhouse, the chalkboards still bear the faint outlines of lessons taught in the 1940s. In the cabins, you might see a rusted sewing machine or a discarded shoe, remnants of a life interrupted. The echoes. Is Garnet haunted? To many who visit, Garnet isn't just a museum, it's a portal. There are countless stories from BLM volunteers and overnight caretakers that suggest the residents of Garnet never truly left. The most famous accounts come from the Wells Hotel. Caretakers have reported the sound of a piano playing in the middle of the night, a lively ragtime tune that stops the moment someone opens the door to the parlor. Others have seen shadow people moving across the upper balconies or heard the heavy thud of boots on the stairs when no one else is in the building. One winter caretaker reported looking out towards the Kelly Saloon in the dead of January. The town was empty, buried under 6 feet of snow. Yet he saw several figures dressed in 19th century clothing standing in the street, laughing and talking. When he blinked, they were gone, leaving no footprints in the fresh powder. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, there is an undeniable energy in Garnet. It is the energy of thousands of people who poured their sweat, blood, and hope into these mountains. It is the feeling of a community that was once vibrant and loud, now reduced to the creak of a swinging door. The legacy of the mountain. Today, Garnet stands as a silent monument to the American spirit. It represents the era of the high lonesome, where men and women gambled everything on the chance of a better life. It wasn't just about the gold, it was about building something in a place where nature said nothing should be built. Walking through Garnet today, you realize that the gold isn't in the ground anymore. The real treasure is the town itself, a perfect, fragile bubble of history preserved in the Montana wilderness. As the sun sets over the Garnet Range, casting long orange shadows through the skeletal remains of the Nancy Hanks mine, you can almost hear the town wake up. You can almost hear the horses neighing, the miners shouting, and the children playing in the dirt. Garnet is not dead. It is simply waiting. It is a reminder that while empires may fall and gold may lose its luster, the stories we leave behind are permanent. If you ever find yourself in the mountains of western Montana, follow the old stagecoach road. Listen for the wind in the pines. And if you hear the sound of a piano drifting through the trees, don't run. Just stop, listen, and remember the people of Garnet who turned a mountain of rock into a mountain of dreams. To understand why Garnet still stands while hundreds of other mining camps have dissolved into the soil, you have to look past the gold and into the hearts of the people who refused to let the town die. The survival of Garnet wasn't an accident of geography, it was a testament to a specific kind of frontier grit. The iron will of Jane Wells. If the town of Garnet had a heartbeat, it pulsed within the walls of the Wells Hotel. While Frank Wells handled the logistics, it was his wife, Jane Wells, who became the unofficial matriarch of the mountain. In a town where whiskey was cheaper than water and men often lost their moral compass in the dark of the mines, Jane ran a tight ship. The Wells Hotel was a sanctuary of civilization. Jane insisted on white linen tablecloths and fine Bavarian china, even though every plate had to survive a jarring 10-mile wagon ride up a vertical mountain trail. She didn't allow swearing in the dining room, and she certainly didn't allow the soiled doves from the local brothels to step foot in her parlor. For the miners, the hotel wasn't just a place to sleep, it was a reminder of the homes they had left behind in the East or in Europe. Sitting in the hotel dining room, eating a roast beef dinner while the wind howled outside at 40 below zero, a man could almost forget he was living on the edge of the world. The science of the Yellow Devil. To truly appreciate Garnet, you must understand the sheer physical audacity of 19th century mining. The gold here wasn't just lying in the creek beds waiting to be scooped up. It was locked inside hard rock, trapped within veins of quartz deep underground. The miners of Garnet were engineers of necessity. They utilized stamp mills, massive iron machines that used heavy weights to crush gold-bearing rock into a fine powder. The sound was deafening. When the Garnet mines were at their peak, the rhythmic thud, thud, thud of the stamp mills could be heard from miles, vibrating through the very soles of your boots. It was the sound of money being made. To separate the gold from the crushed rock, they used mercury. The liquid metal would bind with the gold to form an amalgam, which was then heated in a retort to burn off the mercury, leaving behind a sponge of pure gold. It was a toxic, dangerous process. Many miners suffered from hatter shakes, mercury poisoning, their hands trembling so much they could barely hold a fork. Yet, for the promise of a strike that could make them kings, they stayed. The winter of the deep white. In Garnet, the seasons weren't marked by a calendar, but by the snow. By October, the mountain would begin to close its doors. The stagecoach would swap its wheels for runners, becoming a giant sleigh. One legendary winter in the early 1900s saw snowdrifts so high that residents had to dig tunnels to get from their front doors to the general store. The main street of Garnet became a series of white canyons. Communication with the outside world, the town of Bearmouth in the valley below, was cut off for weeks at a time. During these months, the town turned inward. They held grand balls at the hotel. Fiddlers would play until dawn, and the miners would dance with the few brave women of the town, their heavy boots thumping on the pine floors. They shared what they had, a barrel of salt pork, a sack of dried apples, and endless stories. This isolation is what forged the bond that kept the town together long after the gold began to fail. The resurgence, a Depression-era miracle. Most ghost towns die once. Garnet died twice. When the Great Depression hit in 1929, the rest of America was in breadlines. But in Garnet, the silence was broken by the sound of old engines roaring back to life. Because the U.S. government had devalued the dollar and pegged it to a higher gold price, the waste ore left behind by the 19th century miners suddenly became profitable. Families who had lost their homes in the cities moved into the abandoned cabins of Garnet. They patched the roofs with tin cans and stuffed the cracks in the walls with old newspapers. For a brief window from 1934 to 1940, Garnet was a living town again. Children played in the ruins of the old saloons, and the post office was reopened. It was a poor man's gold rush. These weren't corporate mining giants. These were fathers and sons trying to survive the hardest economic era in American history. They scavenged the old tailing piles, finding enough gold to keep their families fed. Arrested decay, preserving the silence. Today, Garnet is managed by the Bureau of Land Management, BLM, but they do something very unusual here. Most historical sites are restored, meaning they are painted, polished, and made to look like brand new. Garnet is preserved in arrested decay. The goal is to stop the clock exactly where it stood. If a piece of wallpaper is peeling, the rangers leave it. If a window is cracked, they stabilize the frame but don't always replace the glass with modern panes. When you walk into the Doll Saloon, you see the dust of 1940. You see the original labels on the medicine bottles in the doctor's office. This philosophy allows you to feel the passage of time. You aren't looking at a museum exhibit, you are looking at a corpse that has been perfectly preserved by the mountain air. It creates an atmosphere that is both eerie and deeply moving.
The ghosts of the Garnet Range. Is Garnet truly haunted? If you ask the locals in nearby Missoula or Helena, they will tell you stories. But the ghosts of Garnet aren't the vengeful spirits of horror movies. They are the echoes of a lost civilization. Overnight volunteers often report the smell of fresh-baked bread coming from the Wells Hotel kitchen, even though the ovens haven't been lit in 80 years. Others describe the sound of a horse and carriage pulling up to the town square, the jingle of the harness, the snort of the animal, only to find the street empty and the snow undisturbed. Perhaps the most chilling story is that of the lady in the window. Visitors have frequently photographed the upper floor of the hotel, only to find the image of a woman in a high-collared dress staring back at them from a room that is locked and empty. Why Garnet matters today. In a world of high-speed internet, glass skyscrapers, and constant noise, Garnet, Montana, offers something rare: a mirror. It reminds us that nothing is permanent. The people who built Garnet thought their town would last forever. They built grand hotels, schools for their children, and deep mines that they thought were bottomless. But the mountain always wins in the end. Yet there is hope in the ruins. Garnet shows us that even when the gold is gone and the people have left, the spirit of what they built remains. It is a place of profound quiet, where you can hear your own heartbeat and contemplate the grit of those who came before you. As you leave Garnet, driving down the winding road back toward the valley, the modern world feels louder, faster, and somehow less substantial. You look back in the rearview mirror, and the town is already gone, swallowed by the Douglas firs and the shifting mountain mist. But the silence of the richest ghost town in Montana stays with you, a golden memory of a time when men reached for the stars by digging into the dirt. The Last Man in Garnet, F.A. Davy and the End of an Era. As World War II raged across the oceans, the final light of Garnet didn't go out all at once. It flickered in the window of one specific building, the F.A. Davy store. Frank A. Davy was more than a storekeeper. He was the town's living memory. While families packed their Model Ts and headed for the defense plants in Seattle or the shipyards of California, Davy stayed. He sat among his shelves of canned goods, bolts of fabric, and rusted mining tools, waiting for a customer base that was slowly vanishing into the mountain mist. For years, Davy remained the sole guardian of the village. He watched as the paint peeled and the porches began to sag. He saw the deer and elk reclaim the main street where children once played. When he finally passed away in 1947, the living history of Garnet technically died with him. His store remains today exactly as he left it, a time capsule of a man who refused to believe the dream was over. The The Science of Silence: How Garnet Survived. You might wonder why Garnet simply didn't burn down or rot away like so many other Montana hell-on-wheels towns. The answer lies in its altitude. At nearly 6,000 feet, the air is thin, dry, and cold. This natural refrigeration slowed the growth of fungus and wood rot. Furthermore, because Garnet was tucked into a high mountain bowl, it was shielded from the high-velocity winds that flattened other camps. But perhaps the most important factor was its isolation. There were no major highways nearby, and no reason for modern developers to bulldoze the site. Garnet was protected by its own loneliness. In the 1970s, when the Bureau of Land Management, or BLM, took over, they faced a choice: renovate or preserve. They chose the latter, perfecting a technique called arrested decay. This involves hidden reinforcement, steel rods tucked inside rotting timber to keep walls upright; roof stabilization, replacing cedar shakes with historically accurate wood to prevent snow weight collapses; vegetation management, keeping the forest at bay so the roots don't tear up the foundations. Because of this, Garnet is not a reconstruction. When you touch a wall in the Kelly Saloon, you are touching wood that was cut by a pioneer's saw in 1897. The echoes in the dark, the ghost in the ghost town. The question everyone asks is it really haunted? If you talk to the BLM winter caretakers, the brave souls who live in Garnet during the months when the roads are blocked by 10 feet of snow, they will tell you that haunted is the wrong word. The town is crowded. One caretaker, who lived in a cabin near the Wells Hotel, reported that in winter nights, the town feels busier than it does during the day. He described the sound of a party coming from the Kelly Saloon, the clink of glasses, muffled laughter, and the scraping of chairs. But when he approached with a flashlight, the tracks in the snow were only his own, and the saloon was as cold and dark as a tomb. Then there is the Nancy Hanks shadow. Near the site of the most famous mine, visitors have reported seeing a man in a flat cap and suspenders walking toward the mine shaft. He looks so real that tourists often try to call out to him, thinking he is a historical reenactor. He never turns around. He simply walks into the side of the hill and vanishes. These aren't frightening spirits. They are the residual hauntings of a place where life was lived so intensely that the energy seems to have stained the very ground. The modern pilgrimage. Today, Garnet receives thousands of visitors a year, yet it never feels touristy. There are no costumed actors, no staged shootouts, and no gift shops selling plastic gold nuggets. To visit Garnet is to take a physical journey back to 1898. You drive up a narrow dirt road that tests your brakes and your nerves. You walk through the tall grass, and for a moment, the 21st century disappears. You see the schoolhouse, where the desks still sit in rows, waiting for children who grew up and left 80 years ago. The doll saloon, where you can still see the stains on the bar from spilled beer and hard lives. The Wells Hotel, standing tall and imposing, a monument to Jane Wells's vision of mountain elegance. Conclusion: the golden lesson. The story of Garnet, Montana, is the story of America in miniature. It is a story of explosive growth, imaginable wealth, tragic disaster, and a slow, dignified end. It reminds us that the American dream wasn't just found in the gold at the bottom of a pan, it was found in the community built on top of it. The people of Garnet didn't just want to be rich, they wanted to belong. They built a town in a place that didn't want them, and they made it beautiful. As the sun dips below the Garnet Range, the shadows of the Douglas firs stretch across the empty streets. The wind picks up, whistling through the cracks in the cabin walls, sounding remarkably like a human sigh. The gold is gone, the people are gone, but Garnet remains, a skeletal, beautiful reminder that even when we leave, our stories stay behind, etched into the wood and whispered by the mountain wind. The richest ghost town in Montana still holds its greatest treasure, a window into who we used to be, and a silent, standing proof that the spirit of the frontier never truly dies. It just waits for the next traveler to come and listen.
Thanks for watching.